afternoon and welcome to Robbing Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. A beautiful Sunday, and we're glad you've joined us for what promises to be a packed and amazing show. We start off with headlines from the past week. Quite a lot happened in the past week, from the policeman just abusing the power he had and assaulting someone wearing AI-powered glasses despite producing documents. We also had what I think only happens in a country like Nigeria, where you have a former governor who's under investigation for alleged corruption, Kogi State Governor Bello, insisting that current serving lawmakers kneel before him. Those are some of the headlines which might just sound really strange, but they actually happened over the past week. To discuss this and more, I'm joined by a legal strategist, David Oluronti. David, welcome to Robbing Minds.
Thank you very much for having me.
I don't know, but when you hear these headlines, they're almost stranger than fiction. You produce your documents. The policeman is there to protect, to serve. And despite having all your documents, because you're wearing AI-powered glasses, you're getting assaulted. What does this say about the security architecture we have in this country and the line between protecting and abusing power?
First of all, I must say it's very sad. I hope that the victim in this case pursues his rights, because I think that in general, as Nigerians, we forgive a lot of things. We're known to be very patient and easygoing people eventually when things become tough. Of course, it says a lot about our security architecture and, you know, understanding of the uniformed man on the street as to what his purpose is being on that street. If in the back of his mind he realizes that his first function is to protect and serve on that street, then I don't think his approach will be to slap someone all because they had the glasses on.
So AI-powered glasses,
yes.
Some would say, okay, you're recording me without my permission.
Yes.
What does the law say when it comes to being recorded in public?
Yes.
And was there any infringement on the police officer's rights?
Yes. Personally, I don't think that there was. The police, so first of all, I think citizens generally have to understand that the police have a right to stop and search, and that's not diminished in any way by the use of AI or anything like that, right? Wearing your glasses, your sunglasses, for whatever reason, whether AI powered, whether recording or not, should also not be a problem under the law, because as a citizen, you're allowed to do that as long as you're not using it for any sinister purposes, right? If the police then approaches you and says, you know, let me see that, or let me inspect what that is, you have a right to be able to give them that and then make sure that they use it for whatever they want to see, and then they can return it back to you. I don't know any part of the law that then requires that they seize it or beat you up for wearing glasses, right? The question that comes to mind, or that one should be asking, was what was the purpose of the stop and search? Was it just to the documentation? How did we end up at a police officer slapping someone that he should be protecting on the streets? I don't know if there was any verbal altercation that might have led to that. So in law, you could say possible provocation or something like that. But it's clear that that police officer needs a lot of training and restraint. And I hope that Nigerians just generally know that there's no law that says that you cannot wear AI-powered glasses at a police stop and search. As a matter of fact, being a lawyer, I would recommend that you do, if possible, to avoid situations and scenarios like this. And there are procedures and methods to which to get redress. Of course, ultimately it's the courts, but I hope he gets a good lawyer, writes a petition to the IG of police, and also takes it up in court, right? There's also a complaints channel that I know that the police have. It will be good to submit that video there and see what they get from investigating however this occurred. Yeah.
I'd like us to move to the case of the former governor of Kogi State, Bello. He's being investigated for alleged corruption charges by the EFCC, but yet he's able to command such power to the point that serving lawmakers are kneeling before him. What does this say about godfatherism? What does this say about the office of the lawmakers? Where do you draw the line between doing what your godfather says and respecting the office and the people who've put their trust in you to serve them?
I think this is a very dicey situation, to be honest. Nigeria is a very culturally inclined society.
So a former governor,
yes,
not an Oba,
yes,
not a traditional
yes,
ruler,
yes,
not the Sultan.
Yes.
This is a former democratically elected governor.
Let's break it down a little bit like this, right? In every political arena, you're always going to find situations of godfatherism, right? And it's not peculiar to only Nigeria as in where, right? The question is, to what purpose does godfatherism serve? The person's interest or the general interest of all of us, right? In this scenario, I suspect, because I don't know personally, but I suspect that a lot of those House of Reps members or State House of Assembly members owed their political fortunes to the person of the former governor.
But people voted for these people. The former governor did not install them.
Understand this. Legally, there's nothing wrong with kneeling before somebody you respect. Constitutionally, there's nothing wrong, whether you're a House of Rep member, State House of Assembly member, president, you still have people you respect. So I personally have no problems with anybody kneeling down before anybody else. Would I personally kneel down before somebody? No. But I understand the cultural importance, and I think we also have to put these things in context. I'm not supporting bad behavior or godfatherism. I'm saying in our culture, it's important that you respect people who either help your fortunes or have brought you where you need to be.
You have to still address the issue of loyalty. Is your loyalty to the former governor who helped you politically, or is your loyalty to the people who elected you, people who queued under rain and sunshine and ensured that you were elected into office?
So the question is, by kneeling down before someone, does that stop your ability to provide for the people who have voted for you? That's the question we should be talking about and we should be answering. I'll give you another example. In the recent past, former President Olusegun Obasanjo instructed a gathering of elders and obas and all of them to stand up before him because he was addressing them. I didn't see much brouhaha about that. Maybe because Obasanjo is significantly older in age, and so people accept it. If we can accept that, why can't we accept that Yaya Bello is their political godfather? Is it right that he asks people to kneel or whatever for whatever reason? I don't think so. But I don't think he was also thinking that someone was recording it. The question again...
Yeah, kneeling down to greet is a different thing.
Yes.
That's culture.
Yes.
I'll probably kneel down, you put your hand or you prostrate.
Yes.
Greeting.
Yes.
But when we're now conversing, imagine us kneeling down to have this conversation. That's now gone beyond greeting.
I understand that. And then the question that, which is why I said, I won't focus on you kneeling down. I'll focus on what is being said. A lot of what was being said in that short clip bothered me much more than they kneeling down. When a former governor is telling his political stooges while they are kneeling down that any bill that is brought before them by the sitting governor must be passed, whether or not they understand. I have a problem with that more than the fact that they knelt down. And I will continue to insist that the kneeling down part of it, if it was not recorded for our viewing, we will never know.
Yes, but kneeling down for a whole conversation, these are serving lawmakers.
So another thing that I would also point out is they were not in the State House of Assembly. It seemed like they were in, and I'm not defending anybody, please. Let it be very clear that I do not speak for Governor Yaya Bello or anybody that was involved in that. But they seemed like they were in a small space that couldn't contain everybody. I don't know what had happened before or thereafter. I want to assume that he was trying to make sure everybody could, contain that space, hence why he asked that maybe they sit and kneel.
But no.
Was it okay? Would I do it? No.
And would you expect your lawmaker to be on their knees? Like they represent power. That's what it is. When we put our trust through our ballots, into saying you are going to represent us, then there's an office that should be respected. So them staying on their knees for a conversation with a former governor begs the question of their loyalty.
I'll ask you this. If that same State House of Assembly member was kneeling before his mother or grandmother in the village for a whole conversation, despite the power he holds, would you have a problem with it?
A grandmother,
yes,
a mother. Yes. This is a familiar setting.
This is a godfather as well.
This is politics we're talking about. Yes. And what we're saying, if you were okay with it and you're saying, oh, let's not question it, then is that what is going to be expected for all the other lawmakers? Again, is this not an anomaly?
It is an anomaly, and I want to make that clear. It is an anomaly. Would I put myself in such a position? I hope never to be found wanting that way. But the question, again, that I want critically answered, and I think it is more important than the act of kneeling down at any point, is what was being said to them. How does anyone advise a State House of Assembly to willy-nilly turn a blind eye to whatever is presented before them and pass them throughout the tenure just for peace sake? I am not asking that there be fights or that they become, you know, antagonistic towards the governor, but
the former governor.
Because he was advising them on behalf of the on the present governor.
The conversation is one thing, but I think is what it says to the populace. What we're saying now is that, okay, going forward is an expected thing, that they should continue to kneel. And the person in question is not that old. You gave the example of a grandmother. Yes. You cannot compare the age of a grandmother, maybe an 80-something-year-old or 90-something-year-old,
and mothers
to Yahaya Bello.
I agree with you.
He's still young. He's not even in office.
I agree with you.
And whatever he has to say, I feel like there should be some respect for the office and the position they hold.
And I agree with you. And I think that they've put themselves in that position where, I mean, so think about it this way. If one person in that short clip was to stand up and say, I am not kneeling down, what do you think the outcome of that would have been for that person in the immediate? Maybe in the future he comes out a hero, but in the immediate right there, how would that have ended for him? Number two would be the question about the level of education and the type of people we vote into power, right? There are parts of Nigeria where the politics is still as, how would I put it, grand and old, like you would have back in the days, right? And there are parts of Nigeria where down in the west here, Lagos, Abuja, people are a lot more, you know, understanding, more modern in how they approach these things. What I would say is the takeaway from it in terms of who are the people participating in the politics back home. If a lot of people from Kogi State are living in Lagos and Abuja and all those places, who are they living the politics of their town to? If you are living into the local people there who are not as educated or as civilized as they should be, you're going to expect things like that.
I think it must be said that if a whole sitting governor is kneeling before the ex-governor, then the lawmakers in their defense might say, well, this is what our principal is doing. But I think it should definitely be frowned upon, and it should not be seen as normal, whether in the aspect of culture or not. Like, there should be some respect for the office.
And I think the EFCC has a lot of questions to answer as to what is happening with, you know, their interrogation and investigation into his case.
You know, you were saying something about the people who are actually electing these people, and I don't know whether this is something for us to be happy about, the record numbers of 500,000 people registering for their PVC, because yes, it's great, but does this always translate to polls? Does it always translate to the ballot sheet? What do you make of this frenzy to go and get the voter's card? Or,
I think it's a brilliant thing. I think it's good to see that there's a large number of people looking to participate in the upcoming elections. Will it translate into more people voting? Given our history and our precedent, I don't believe so. Because there's a myriad of things that result in people coming out to vote. You know, safety on the day, who are the people on the ballot, you know, am I allowed to be in one place and vote for elections where I come from, or do I have to be in that place personally to be able to vote? So there are a lot of factors that will eventually eat into whether those numbers will translate into actual votes. But to see that the political space is heating up and people are beginning to take note and participate is a good thing. I hope, however, that these are not phantom numbers. And political parties do play these games, you know, where you have mass registrations of new intakes into parties and things like that. But let's see what the trend is leading up to 2027. I think there's a lot of talk already around 2027. You know, there's a new party now, ADC, I think they're called. The current sitting people are already looking at re-election. So now is the time to begin to get your voter's card and register for those things. And hopefully come 2027, they do participate in the elections.
Another thing that we must touch on before we're out of time is the accidents that we've seen on the road, particularly when it comes to the Dangote trucks. And now we're seeing them invest in training. Is this supposed to be led by them, like a corporate social responsibility, or is this something that the government should have enforced all along, or do you think they're just saving face?
I think it's a combination of all three. When you work in corporate space, you have to take all three together. It makes sense for them to retrain their drivers if there's an upsurge in, accidents on the road caused by them. It makes sense for the government to also come down hard on them and ensure that there's good training for these drivers, and it's good corporate social responsibility. We all want, corporate entities that take responsibility where they are failing. So I'll give them a thumbs up, but I also think that the government needs to do a lot more because, Dangote is one person. There are a lot more trucks that are riding our roads, especially in urban centers like Lagos and Abuja, where, there's a large population of people on the road. It's important that they are trained about what to do, when to be on the road. Sometime in the past under Governor Fashola, I believe, in Lagos State, we used to have a curfew around what time those guys can be on the road. Maybe that's something to begin to look at national-wide, I don't know. But the truth is, I'll give Dangote kudos for at least taking that step, recognizing that, listen, there's been a myriad of cases and an upsurge in these accidents. We need to do something about this and retrain these guys. I think that should be a plus to them. But it shouldn't also stop the government for sanctioning them where they fail at doing the right things, especially the individuals who are driving these things. You can't be on drugs. You can't not have good sleep before you get behind the steering, taking alcohol. You see some of them on their phones, or trying to get on tiny roads that these trucks can clearly not fit on. So,
and speaking of the drivers, some of them are not even literate. Some of them are not able to string a sentence together. So it then begs the question of what are the standards when it comes to recruiting drivers? And what's the government doing to ensure that only the right people are being able to get into such positions?
So I think it's a funny thing because you use the word literate. And I don't think that, and I think
literate, you have to be able to read signs. You have to be able to.
So you have to be road literate, not literate in the sense of formal education, is what I was trying to say.
But how would you pass your driving test if you are not literate? Your theory driving test, not just the practical one.
There are people who are able to do those things without having to go to formal education. And I think it's important that we distinguish that, because I think that generally, as Nigerians, we attach a lot of responsibility to being educated or literate to do something. You can be literate and be a drunkard. You can be literate and be a drug addict. You could have passed the theory and know how to read all the signs, and you were drunk on that day and decided to kill people. So I think there's a small dichotomy there. However, I do admit that there's a level of literacy required for you to drive. That literacy is gotten in training. So if those people are being trained right now, then we can't but give them kudos, right? The next question then will be, is that up to standard, international standards? That is up to the government to then enforce and ensure that it is. But yeah, I don't see a problem with people who may not have gotten, university education, being able to get behind a wheel.
Okay. So, as we bring this segment to a close, I think you've raised very important points because, like you said, the EFCC still has their work to cut out for them because we can't have a former governor just displaying such brute power and nobody's able to call him to question. I think Nigerians are more interested in him going to answer to the alleged corruption charges. So much to discuss, but we're sadly out of time. Thank you so much, David Oluronti, legal strategist, for joining us on Rubbing Minds.
Thank you for having me.